further debate? The member for Oshawa.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I am very pleased to bring my voice to this debate and those of the people from my community. We're discussing Bill 171, an act to enact the Building Transit Faster Act 2020 and make related amendments to other acts, or, in short, Building Transit Faster Act 2020. I would say I've also got some cute nicknames for it, but really the You're Not the Boss of Me Act is what comes to mind when I read this. It's 22 pages that outline pretty heavy-handed thou shalts to partners like public utilities and cities, but different agencies, in order to ram these projects through. There isn't anyone in this legislature that hasn't heard about the need for transit, but it's the need for transit done well and the need for transit done properly so that we are not hearing about, like in the Eglinton area, things drawn out forever and affecting communities, affecting families, affecting businesses. Transit should be done properly. Transit should be well planned. And I have concerns with a lot of the pieces of this bill that give this minister and this government some pretty significant powers that I don't think are necessary. And I would say not necessary because if the government actually planned with other folks, if the government didn't just write things on a napkin or a map or a mapkin or whatever they're making, if they planned properly with their community agencies and partners, then they wouldn't be hitting roadblocks and walls the way that they are anticipating. So, pick up a phone, work with folks, do the planning well the first time, and then you don't have to have all of these heavy-handed penalties and threats of taking them to the courts and obstruction removal and police powers and force for how to enforce these different pieces. Do things well. Do things right the first time. I mean, I've been standing in this legislature a lot lately talking about how poorly the license plate mess has been handled, how poorly that rollout has gone, not just for this government, but for everyone in a vehicle across the province. Okay, but that's just license plates. And Speaker, arguably license plates have one job. So if that can't be handled properly, how on earth are we to have any faith in this government when it comes to building transit? So before I launch into I'm looking forward to getting into the weeds of this bill and getting into it piece by piece. And I actually wonder, and I won't do a show of hands because that's not really a fair measurement, but I'm tempted to know how many government members have read their own legislation, right? It's only 22 pages. It's not a big, fat omnibus bill. It's very focused, and it's very specific, and it really does give kind of bull in a china shop powers to the minister or the minister's designate, in this case, Metrolinx. But I have an article, Speaker. And I don't normally read an article in its entirety, but I'm going to today, because why reinvent the wheel? Although if I were this government, I might try blue wheels or something that are square. Anyway, here we are. So I have an article from the Globe and Mail, and this is relevant because this is someone's opinion on what this rollout will look like and how these lines are going to be handled. The title is A Bold Prediction. The Ford government will build the Ontario line in the lake. Robin Urbach, February 20th, 2020. Quote, "It is never wise to publish a hard prediction, but I will issue convention and make one anyhow. The government will accidentally build the Ontario line into the lake. It is inevitable coming from the government that last year printed stickers that didn't actually stick to warn gas station patrons about the federal carbon tax. Then earlier this month, it began circulating new license plates that become illegible after the sun goes down. I can only assume, therefore, that the government will follow by either cutting the ribbon on new long-term care beds, for which it will forget to order mattresses, or build its prized Ontario line in the wrong direction after someone mistakenly scans the map upside down."
Please recognize the member for Chatham-Kent-Leamington on a point of order.
Speaker, I was listening very intently to the member from Oshawa, and I believe that I overheard an unparliamentary term used implying that the government is lying, and I would ask that she
Thank you for the point of order. I did not hear that. Back to the member for Oshawa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I most assuredly did not, would not, but this is absolutely relevant in case that's their next point of order, that the Building Transit Faster Act, that there are concerns about the speed and what will happen if we don't dot our I's, cross our T's, and do due diligence. I will continue. In past and present, when confronted with its peeling stickers, washed-out license plates and faded dreams, the Ontario government will insist its products have previously gone through rigorous testing. Indeed, when asked Tuesday about reports that the new license plates cannot be seen in the dark, the Minister of Government and Consumer Services responded by saying Ontario's new plates, quote, are actually very readable, end quote. Anyway, according to the minister, the new street racer-approved Ontario license plates still constitute an improvement on the, quote, flaking and peeling Liberal plates, end quote, which in some cases would become unreadable after years of use, as opposed to the new ones that become unreadable from the time they are made. What this all suggests is that there is a higher than zero chance that Ontario's ambitious new transit plan, which was Toronto's downtown relief line until the Premier scratched off Mayor John Tory and penciled in Doug, will be accidentally built underwater right into Lake Ontario. She continues, quote, the government will realize that the entire north-south portion of the Ontario line was accidentally just built south with 8 stops entirely submerged and leading out in the water to nowhere. The trains, which will only be operational once, will cruise merrily past Queen's Quay, beyond which they will become waterlogged and sink to the bottom of the lake. Look out, quagga mussels. There's a new invasive species coming to Lake Ontario. Back on land, the government will assemble a hasty news conference to respond to reports of missing trains and angry and exhausted passengers swimming up to Cherry Beach, where the Minister of Transport will assure reporters that the Ontario line trains were subject to rigorous testing, not rigorous testing underwater, mind you, but rigorous testing all the same, and that the plans for the transit expansion were reviewed dozens of times. Anyway, the minister will add, quote, the previous Liberal transit line was noisy and disruptive. Ours is unobtrusive and remarkably quiet, end quote. It goes on, and you know what? I'll read the last paragraph. And so, in the end, a fleet of broken trains, useless tracks, and wasted hours will be thrust into the province's do-over pile, which is already flushed with unsticky stickers, unreadable license plates, the government's initial autism program overhaul, the plan to retroactively cut municipal budgets, the plan to cancel construction on a French-language university, and scheduled cuts to the province's legal aid system, among other things. Really, though, when it comes to this government, what is one more mulligan? End quote. Speaker, I tell you that to tell you this. The province broadly is losing faith in the government's ability to do things well, if it had it in the first place. So what we're faced with this act, the Building Transit Faster Act, is giving them massive authority and powers to override and overrun agencies and community partners who absolutely should be respected in the work that they do. So the purpose of this act is to, and I'm reading directly from the bill, Speaker, the purpose of the act is to expedite the delivery of the following 4 priority transit projects for the Greater Toronto Area by removing barriers and streamlining processes that may result in delays to the timely completion of these projects while enhancing coordination and engagement with and being fair to public and private sector stakeholders. I have no idea who defines fair, but there we have it. And it's to the Ontario line, the Scarborough Subway Extension, the Yonge North Subway Extension, the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension. Flipping through, we see that there's information here about permits, what's required to get those, obstruction removals. Obstruction removals makes me a little bit nervous as well. This is that they can remove an obstruction. The minister may determine that the construction of a priority transit project requires the alteration or removal of any of the following things, whether or not they are there in violation of Section 3, structures, so a structure on or under transit corridor land or land within 30 meters of transit corridor land. This does not include the removal of a building, road, or utility infrastructure, but does include the removal of part of a building. I wonder if it's a big part or a little part or a vital part. Trees, shrubs, hedges, and a prescribed thing. I can't wait for regulations to know what thing would be. And I see that in this bill that it does have this might seem like a small thing, but it isn't. There's a section in this bill that does outline that the government would plant trees to replace any trees that were removed, and do so in accordance with any regulation on tree replacement, or if there weren't regulations, in accordance with applicable municipal bylaws on tree replacement. So the reason that I'm mentioning that just briefly is I want to flag for this government that we have really awesome projects along the Highway of Heroes, the Living Tribute, that there is a goal to plant 2 million trees between Trenton and Toronto. That wouldn't fall under municipal bylaws, but if you're going to be pulling out trees just in future and in different areas, I do hope you'll replace them, even if you don't have to. And I recognize that area isn't a part of this, but it's sort of that going forward, that this government and how they consider, how they seem to approach the environment leaves a lot to be desired. Speaker, the construction danger inspection and elimination. This is fascinating to me, so I'd like some clarification from folks. The minister may enter a property to inspect any of the following things that, in the opinion of the minister, may pose an immediate danger to construction. I don't know what that means. I don't know what the minister knows about construction or what poses a danger. And when you flip back to the, we're going to play the how to walk through a bill game here. When you look back to the definitions, immediate danger to construction says that it poses an immediate danger to the health and safety of persons working on a priority transit project, or if the work is not occurring, but the minister is ready to have that work occur. Okay, I don't see the danger in that, but if the minister is ready and they want to move ahead, the minister does not need to provide notice of the entry and inspection to anyone. Okay, so let's start imagining a scenario. This government is wanting to move forward with their transit plans, these lines. So they're going to come across different buildings, dwellings, as we read eloquently, things that are in the way. And if the minister decides, even if there isn't anyone working on it yet, but they're ready to work, that there is a danger, they don't need to provide notice of entry and inspection to anyone. So imagine someone knocks on your door and says, we think that your property will cause a danger to work that hasn't happened yet, as per the opinion of the minister. Oh, well, I didn't get a phone call. Oh, no, we don't have to provide notice. Okay, well, I don't want you here. Well, it says, the individual who carries out construction danger inspection and elimination may request police assistance, and a police officer who accepts the request may use whatever force is necessary to assist the construction danger inspection and elimination. Okay, I don't want to let you in. Well, I've got the police here. Okay, but my kids aren't home from school yet. Can you come back another time? Well, here's the next part, obstruction. A person shall not hinder, obstruct, or interfere with a construction danger inspection and elimination. What constitutes interfere? An argument? A discussion? A hesitation? Because then it goes on to say, a person who hinders, obstructs, or interferes with the carrying out of a construction danger inspection and elimination loses an entitlement to compensation. So are you going to take my house, and because I don't want you to, now I don't get compensation when you just carry out your plan? I have a problem with that, but there's another fun part, and I say fun, and that's not, I shouldn't be sarcastic. There is a part that is actually quite concerning. Oh man, where is it? If the minister is satisfied that a person is contravening or not complying with the prescribed provision of this Act or regulations, the minister may by order impose an administrative penalty on the person in accordance with this section and the regulations. There's another part that says that if I fight them, I being the person who got the knock on the door and told to move my house or dwelling or building or structure or quote thing, that constitutes an offense, Speaker. So I recognize that the folks across there are thinking, what is she talking about? That's never going to happen. We've got the best of intentions, and we want to get transit moving, and we would never have that kind of scenario come up. Oh, yeah? How can you be sure? I know that the government is saying that these powers are about, that it's, what is the word? That these powers are intended only as backstops to good faith negotiations with stakeholders, such as the City of Toronto, utilities, developers, property owners, and local communities. I have no faith that this government understands good faith. You know, we're seeing it we're not seeing it at the bargaining table now. We certainly don't get a sense from the community that folks have faith in the government's ability to bargain or negotiate in good faith. Further to that, some of the concerns, you know, when it comes to agencies like the TTC or public utilities, which there are powers laid out in this bill, agencies like the TTC and public utilities will likely have to spend more money, delay their own work, experience more inconvenience because the priority projects will jump to the front of the queue. So no matter what the agency is, if they have short-term, mid-term, or long-term projects that are moving forward in the community, that people have planned, there's been investment, there's been due diligence, and now we've got these priority transit projects, and those trump the others. And I understand that you want to move forward with this, but this government says all the time that they want to get rid of red tape, but they're creating so much red tape now by all of these agencies and public utilities that may have to stop their projects, be taken to court, deal with their partners. All of that is red tape, but all of that is a mess that would be avoidable if you were good and responsible planners. I mean, obviously, the issues of how utilities are moved and when would be very complicated. Sewers and TTC, infrastructure, you've got bridges, water, telecommunications, roads, all of that. This government should be coordinating with them. If you're going to be digging up a road, there should be coordination. And what is in this bill creates consequences for those community partners and expenses. This government has put in writing, has put in here that if they disagree, then basically they can take them to court. If a utility company fails to comply with a notice, and that notice is basically when the government tells them to do it, if they don't like it, then a judge of the Superior Court of Justice may, on an application made by Metrolinx, either order the utility company to comply or authorize Metrolinx to carry out the work described in the notice anyway. And a utility company shall compensate Metrolinx. A utility company shall compensate Metrolinx for a loss or expense incurred because they're not complying with your turnarounds, your timelines, and your thou shalts. This really is, bull in a china shop legislation at its finest, which is, I'd say, a problem. And I do have a question. So, Speaker, extrapolating these powers, extrapolating the situation, but because we're talking about transit projects, I'm standing here as the representative of the folks in Oshawa and Durham region, and we are excited and looking forward to an extension of train service to Bowmanville. And in the Durham region, while we're all excited and we're hopeful, we still have our agencies that are waiting for that phone call from Metrolinx. And I hope that it comes that says, here's our project manager, here's the plan, and collaborates with them to look at what their projects are now and in the future to do their best as a planning partner to make sure that we're not creating obstacles to that future project, because that's how things should get done, right? That if you pick up the phone and you call the folks across Durham region and say, hey, utility company, hey, municipality, what do you have in the works that we don't want to trip over, we don't want to have to dig up, we don't want there to be a problem, let's work together now and plan so that that line can move forward to Bowmanville. That would be the right way to do this. You haven't done that with Toronto. You haven't been collaborative partners, and now we see a bill that says, well, we don't need to be. We can just give this to Metrolinx, and we can do what we want, whether it's expropriating, knocking on the door and saying, we're deeming you a danger, whatever. It's really heavy-handed. So to hide behind or to suggest that this is only if things go off the rails, well, why let it go off the rails in the first place? Do your best to be to be forward-looking partners, because that is what transit should be about, is about community, is about what's best for people's experiences, getting them where they need to go, not just digging yourself a hole and then shoving everybody else into it. That is not how to govern, not how to build transit. I mean, I hate to bring it back to the license plates. It just feels so familiar, though, because they're giving me so much opportunity. But if they can't get license plates right, we worry about transit. Please reassure us. Thank you.
Questions, the Associate Minister of Energy.